one-time WWE Divas Champion, one-time WWE SmackDown Women's Champion, one-time WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, ranked number 20 of the top 50 greatest WWE female superstars of all time in 2021, ranked number 4 of the top 50 female wrestlers in the PWI Female 50 in 2011. Ladies, gentlemen, my non-binary friends, it is I, Josh Robinson, here for Love Wrestling, and this one is all heart, because it's the Legacy of Natalya. Often touted as the only woman to ever graduate from the famous Hart family dungeon, in the early 2000s, Natalya would begin her wrestling journey, wrestling throughout Canada, Japan, and even Mexico. It wasn't until 2007 that Natalya's life was changed when she was signed by WWE. Throughout 2007 to 2008, Natalya would wrestle in OVW and FCW. She was trialed as a wrestler, a manager, a ring announcer, everything that people were kind of doing, especially when it comes to women at that time in WWE, was really a Jill of all trades, was trying a little bit of everything. Now, it was actually kind of a weird time for Natty when she was in the developmental territories throughout the WWE system, because in 2007 she was actually brought up to different kind of tapings and things to do dark matches where she would win various battle royals, and she actually debuted as the Next Generation Hart Foundation along with her cousins Teddy Hart and Harry Smith for tag team matches. Now, these would move throughout FCW and OVW, they would do different things. Natty would even work in the ring along the likes of Alicia Fox to take on the Bellas and stuff like that throughout FCW and OVW. On April 4th, 2008, Natalya would make her SmackDown debut as a heel, of course, known as Natalya Neidhart. She'd come out of the crowd to aid Victoria in attack against Michelle McCool and Cherry, forming an alliance with her in the process. On the April 11th, 2008 episode of SmackDown, she introduced herself as Jim Neidhart's daughter under, of course, the name Natalya Neidhart, accompanying Victoria to her match against Michelle McCool. Now, before her in-ring debut, her name was shortened to just Natalya. Of course, we all kind of know Natty as Natty or Natty Neidhart or Natalya Neidhart or whatever you really want to call Natalya, but she always has the Hart family name kind of attached in there at some point. Now, she would make her in-ring television debut just a few weeks after debuting on SmackDown, defeating Cherry with her, of course, Uncle's submission move, the Sharpshooter. Now, Natty would actually work throughout 2008 alongside Victoria. She was actually, I guess you could say, a pretty integral part in introducing the Bella twins to WWE, because the Bella's first feud was with Victoria and Natalya. Now, Natalya was known for her heel stuff during 2008, and she even competed for the Divas Championship against Michelle McCool, obviously in a losing effort. Now, Natty would do different things on SmackDown in 2008 going into 2009, and Natty was kind of cementing herself as a woman who could really work in an era where working wasn't really that important. That probably did her a disservice and a service in some points, but she was a solid hand, and some people would probably look at that as a knock, or as that I'm trying to insult Natalya, but it's not. It is a solid hand. She was doing her role really well and was a great heel throughout 2008 and 2009. While still a member of the SmackDown brand, Natalya would make her debut for the ECW brand via the Talent Exchange Agreement. On the February 10th, 2009 edition of ECW, she would manage her real-life boyfriend, TJ Wilson, known to WWE fans as Tyson Kidd. Now, throughout April of 2009, Natalya would work different matches with the likes of Alicia Fox, before eventually, of course, they were joined by none other than Natalya's cousin, David Hart Smith, on the May 13th episode of ECW, forming the Hart Dynasty, although it was actually originally called the Hart Trilogy. Now, the Harts would kind of work together and eventually become tag team champions, and Natty was in that great little pocket of being a manager, sometimes wrestling when they were taking the likes of the Usos along with Tamina Snuka, and was just kind of doing different things in the time. Now, Natty would be known as the Hart Dynasty's manager until 2010, when it was all kind of starting to crumble. And of course, the Hart Dynasty had their nice little pocket of being this generation's The Hart Foundation, or at least that in theory was what they were trying to do. after the Hart Dynasty's time was up in WWE, Natty would actually get back into singles competition, and it wasn't long before Natty was in the hunt for the WWE Unified Divas Championship, and in a nice little program with Lay Cool. On November 21st, 2010, Natalya would defeat Michelle McCool and Layla in a 2-on-1 handicap match to win the WWE Divas Championship for the first and only time. At, of course, TLC, Natty would make more history within the WWE banner, of course alongside Beth Phoenix, defeating Lay Cool in first, and at this stage only, tag team tables Divas match in WWE history. Of course, there was different things changing, and Natty would end up losing the WWE Divas Championship to Eve Torres in a Fatal 4-Way match at the Royal Rumble in 2011. Throughout the early parts of 2011, Natty was kind of shifted back to SmackDown, and again, just became in that bubble of, I'm a good hand, I know what I'm doing, I know how to work, in a time where working really didn't matter. Now, I think one of the biggest parts of the Divas time, and Natty's specifically in that time, was the Divas of Doom. Now, Beth Phoenix would eventually become the #1 contender for Kelly's Divas Championship, and of course, Natty would be in another unit, but this time in a much different role, aligning with Beth Phoenix to kind of say that the days of the perky, cute, blonde little bimbos were officially over. They would kind of take over both WWE in the sense of Raw, SmackDown, everything, and just be the mainstays. The Divas Championship was around the waist of Beth Phoenix eventually in 2011 and going into 2012, and Natty was right by her side. Now, while that feud did a lot for the Divas division, it was kind of the stop and start time of the Divas they would get a little bit of a story and then they get it ripped away. They'd get a little bit of a story and then get it ripped away. And I think Natty was kind of just like a playing piece in the puzzle that wasn't necessarily, in the WWE's eyes, that important to the integrity of the story. She was just kind of the side cast. If you look at that storyline and what Natty and Beth did for that time, they were getting a lot of love and they were getting a lot of attention and getting a lot of steam for the Divas division. But of course, at WrestleMania 28 in 2012, Natty wasn't even with Beth Phoenix in the tag team match. That was the only match that the Divas got at that WrestleMania. As you know, Divas would only get one, if that, at WrestleMania, and Natty wasn't even in the spot. So you can kind of sense the time and the kind of position Natty was held in, and the kind of, I guess, importance Natty was seen in the back, I guess you could say. Now, if we really need to get into this stuff, because in early 2012, after the kind of Divas of Doom stuff had kind of went away and Beth was doing her own thing, Natty would begin a very interesting character, I guess if you want to call it that. She farted on screen. This was heavily criticized and stuff like that, rightfully so, but Natty was comedy. And again, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as what the actual hell is going on here with Natalya. Why is she being put in a storyline where she's farting? If you even want to call it a storyline, her character was just she farted. What is the point of this when she's someone that can wrestle so well? Then if you look at it from the other thing, is like, Natty will do whatever the WWE needs her to do. She is kind of the ultimate ultimate company girl, and the ultimate, I will do anything you need me to further along the story or my character in any way and show that I have many different layers. But that didn't last too long, thankfully. But Natty was that woman that was just interchangeable in the WWE's eyes. It's actually quite remarkable when you think of all the women that come and went in the Divas era of WWE. Natty stuck by it. She's been a solid WWE member since 2007. That's a long damn time to, when you think about the parallels of everything that was going on in the WWE, especially with women in that time. In 2013, Natty got a huge opportunity to be a part of the debut cast of the Total Divas reality TV show. Total Divas is something I've talked about a lot in the WWE. It's talked on this series, and it's talked about a lot in the WWE world, and people have opinions on it of whether it was great, whether it was not. You know me, and you know the sentence that's about to come out of my mouth. I'm always a strong proponent of this because it did more to get more eyes and a different audience on professional wrestling. Did they all parallel and did they all come across just because they were watching that show? Absolutely not, but a small portion did, and it helped get more eyes on a very struggling division that the WWE see no value in outside of eye candy. This showed that the women can have characters, they can have storylines, and they can do different things. I think the perfect example of Total Divas kind of crossing into the WWE creative is, of course, the Total Divas versus AJ Lee storyline. Now, AJ Lee was kind of a person that we've talked about. We've had her own episode of The Legacy Of. Natty was in the fold. There was a time where it was Brie and then going in with Nikki and doing all these different things, but Natty was a huge chunk of AJ's run and having some great matches. If you look, the end of 2012, the beginning of 2013, on an episode of WWE Main Event, before Main Event was just the exclusive network Hulu thing, they had a deal on television, and Natty and AJ Lee got 15 minutes. A Divas match getting 15 minutes. There was really, really small little sprinkles of what we know now with women getting treated more. That if you give story, if you give effort, if you allow them time, they can deliver. Natty and AJ did that when they got that time to have a Divas Championship match. It was working for them. After the Total Divas storyline on TV come to an end, Natty would enter back into a management role. She would of course go into the storyline with her real life husband Tyson Kidd, which their relationship was actually openly acknowledged on screen for the very first time. There was different kinds of things, which was a whole thing of Natty and Tyson Kidd not getting along with one another and doing all these things. They actually kind of ushered into the NXT scene and doing things on NXT. Of course, Natty had one of the eye-opening matches that women could deliver in WWE with Charlotte Flair for the NXT Women's Championship. I think a lot of people look at that time of NXT TakeOver and doing all these things. Natty was able to it was just to show what Natty could do in the ring. I think as wrestling fans, we all knew that Natalya was in an era that wasn't getting focused on wrestling. There was little glimpses of what Natty could really do in the ring, but taking someone as new at the time as Charlotte Flair and having a great damn match in NXT, allowing time, allowing it to breathe, allowing it to develop, Natty was a pro. I think we all knew that Natty was a pro, but she was actually getting opportunities to show it in the ring, and of course on the main roster she was actually able to do things and kind of go back into that management role and show what the world can do and how important a valet can be. Of course, managing Tyson Kidd and eventually Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. They were doing different things and kind of getting tag team opportunities. Natty was right there in the fold. WrestleManias would come around where Tyson Kidd and Cesaro were putting on banger matches, and Natty was right there working with the likes of the Usos and Naomi and doing different things to show that she could get it done outside of the ring and inside the ring. She was the ultimate versatile talent. Now, it's very, very weird to me that when we began the Divas Revolution with the kind of three on three faction war, whatever you want to call that time, when they were starting to give more time to the Divas and starting to show, hey, let's pick up some slack here because we need to treat women a little bit better. Of course, there was a lot of ugh to that time. However, Natty was not included in the very first inklings of the Divas Revolution, of what we now know as the Women's Revolution and Evolution, all of that kind of stuff. When Natty was one of the best damn workers in the company, male or female, Natty was not a part of that due to circumstances holding her back and circumstances not allowing her to be on television. Natty would re-spark her WWE rivalry from NXT with Charlotte Flair on the main roster for the first time in 2016, challenging Charlotte for the WWE Women's Championship. They'd have submission matches and I Quit matches and doing different things to show what they could do, what they did in NXT on the main roster. Unsuccessful for the Women's Championship with Charlotte Flair, she would enter a program with Becky Lynch in 2016 before being drafted to SmackDown as a part of the new look WWE, with SmackDown and Raw again being separated for the first time in nearly 5 years. We all look at the 2016-2017 era of SmackDown as one to remember. There was a lot going on at the time. AJ Styles was leading the brand, Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, John Cena. They were all doing really great things, but I think a kind of maybe a little underlooked part of the SmackDown era of why it was so golden in 2016 was the SmackDown 6 or 7 women that were doing big things with feuds, because when you look at it from maybe afar you're going, well, there's only 6 or 7 women there. What can they really do, and what can that rotation look like for the SmackDown Women's Championship? Well, for the first time in a long time, WWE was actually focusing on women's feuds that didn't involve a championship. Now, Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss, they were battling over the SmackDown Women's Championship at the time, and Carmella was battling with Nikki Bella, but it wasn't before long that Natalya was kind of in this weird little spot where intentionally she was forgotten by WWE, and she wasn't on the SmackDown Women's team at Survivor Series, and Nikki Bella was, and doing all of these different things. For the first time in a while, Natty was actually entering a huge program with Nikki Bella, of course, being the one that attacked Nikki, and we can go down that rivalry another time and in depth, I'm sure, if we look at it from a bit more of an in-depth perspective, but they were doing cool things, having Falls Count Anywhere matches. If you look at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, Nikki Bella and Natalya had a one-on-one singles match. For the first time, I think maybe ever in WWE's history, there was the same amount of women's matches as men's matches on the Elimination Chamber 2017 card. Nikki Bella and Natalya would have some great rivalry going on at the beginning of 2017. A little later in the year in 2017, for the first and currently only time in her career, Natalya would win the SmackDown Women's Championship from Naomi at SummerSlam of 2017. Natty would actually hold the championship until November, when she would lose it to Charlotte Flair, but she would work with Charlotte for a little while again. She would work with Naomi, she would work with different people, and actually show that she can be a champion. And I think it was one of those championship reigns that were long overdue, and it was like a nice pat on the back to be like, hey Natty, we see you, we know that you can do this, we know that you can hold the company on your back if you need to. I think it's a great little helping hand for Natalya in 2017. Now, Natty would be moved back to Raw in 2018 because she was finally aligned with Ronda Rousey. Everyone thought that was going to happen, I'm sure, but she was aligned with Ronda Rousey of being like I think it was all known that Ronda was coming to WWE at some point, and should actually train with Natty outside of the ring, so it did actually work in storyline and in real life. It all kind of, it worked. Natty would compete at the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, eventually aligning with Ronda Rousey and being Ronda Rousey's friend. She would compete at the first and only a women's pay-per-view in 2018 in 6-woman tag team action alongside Sasha Banks and Bayley. Of course, she would get the opportunity to work one-on-one with Ronda Rousey on an episode of Raw at the very end of 2018. She's going to move into the part and do stuff in 2019. She is the Iron Woman of the Royal Rumble match in women's division at 56 minutes and 1 second. She's still holding that record at time of recording to this day. In 2019, Natty would move into the tag team division, competing with the likes with Beth Phoenix at WrestleMania 35 in an unsuccessful effort. Of course, she would compete in Money in the Bank ladder matches. Of course, she was a part of the first ever women's match in Saudi Arabia at Crown Jewel in 2019, along with Lacey Evans. She was doing different things, and she kind of went into the pandemic era. And again, Natty has moved into this spot, especially in the pandemic era, where she was a great hand. She was someone they could always rely on if they need someone to work a program with. Natty was always great in that sense. In 2021, she was able to capture her first and currently only women's tag team championship along with Tamina Snuka. And of course, they wrestled at WrestleMania. They did different things, and eventually they would drop the championships to Nikki ASH and Rhea Ripley. Natty would be moved back to SmackDown at the end of 2021 in the draft. We're doing different things on SmackDown and just solidifying herself as one of the greats. Now, do we think that Natalya's career is going to be over anytime soon? I personally don't. I think Natty's still got a lot left in the tank. I'd love to see Natty win some more women's championships. I think she's long overdue. I think she's always someone that is very reliable within the industry, and if she's going to go down as one of the greatest in-ring talents of all time, whether you're a fan of Natty's style or not, I think we can all agree that Natty is just, she's a great worker because she comes from a great wrestling family. There's not too many Harts that aren't great in the ring. Well, some of them, you know what I'm trying to say here. Natty would work again in 2022 with Ronda Rousey at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. She was eventually injured late last year with a broken nose. We hope to see her in the ring soon. I'm thinking maybe Rumble is somewhere Natty could probably come back. and Natty can be a great solid worker in the division whenever. It's all dependable with Natalya. She's always reliable. She's always someone that can get a good to great match with anybody. That's going to do it for this week's episode of The Legacy Of. There is just 2 more episodes of The Legacy Of Season 3 to come. Next week, it is all about Awesome Kong, Amazing Kong, Karma, whatever you want to call her. We're going to have a look at some different stuff with TNA, AEW, Japan, even WWE when it comes to Awesome Kong. Please let me know what you love about Natalya. I think this is an episode that is probably long overdue. It's kind of the par for course with Natty's career throughout WWE. It's overdue. She's a little underlooked sometimes for knowing how great she really is. It's kind of insane. But leave a comment below of what you think of Natalya, what you think of this series. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that's good stuff. You can, of course, follow me pretty much across the board at JoshRobinson_00. Follow Love Wrestling at Love Wrestling CA pretty much everywhere that you need to on social media. Until next week, guys, I am out of here. Peace out.